Hi, my name is Mish Martins from MWare Technology. I'm going to show you today how we are going to create transactions via the web into Sage ACPAC using the Sage CRM product together with our MWare integration pieces. Let's just maximize the screen a little bit over here. Now what we do is we use our standard CRM product set, and you can see we are using the native CRM functionality of the pipelines, document management, workflow, etc. And then once we have all the information that is necessary for a transaction to exist inside of the ERP system, at that point we take that information, pass it on to a Windows service, and then write it into ACPAC. We only consume a LAN pack at the point of integration into ACPAC. So the LAN pack is not active all the time. In fact, we actually wait for a concurrent license to become available before we actually write it into ACPAC. And it only consumes the LAN pack for that moment in time when the integration is actually taking place. The integration is fully using the API of the ERP, in this case ACPAC. So we don't address the SQL tables directly, so it is very safe to use. It actually it is in line with the normal ACPAC development policies. So let's have a look over here. Over here you can see the pipeline, and we can use a pipeline obviously to filter specific transactions. So if I want to look at all transactions at request stage, I can actually click on the pipeline over there and it will filter. I can look at, for instance, all the transactions at the buyer level. I can look at all the transactions at level 1 approver level, etc., etc. So I can quickly show you what the workflow looks like. If I go into administration over here, you'll see that this is the transactions that we are going to use today as in the demo. We are basically going to create a transaction with starting off at the requisition stage or the originating stage. Then we're going to send it through to a buyer who needs to do all the request of quotes and getting all the costing into the system before we send it off to the approval levels. In this case, we have 3 approvers. We have one which will look at all the transactions up to 10,000 Rand, and then we have a person that will approve transactions between 10,000 and 150, and then once again, all the transactions above 150,000 Rand. Once the transaction has been approved in the workflow, at that stage we actually write it into ACPAC. So if you go back to the main menu over here, let's go and create a transaction. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on new and say new pitch requisition, and I'm going to just initiate the transaction over here. And you can see all the normal native CRM situations are in play. For instance, the mandatory fields are marked with asterisks, etc. So I'm going to just initiate the transaction by clicking on save over here, and then I can go into the purchase requisition tab, and I can go and click on new purchase requisition. At that point, we are basically giving you a custom ASP page, and on the page we are gathering information which will basically kick off this purchase requisition. In the process, for instance, I can add ship via details. In this case, we are going to just ship via the head office, so we're not going to use a courier. If we were using a courier, we could have selected that from the list as well. You can see we have recon totals over there on the screen. We have a vendor quote number, which I can put on and assign to this transaction. And over here, I can basically add my value. Now, what we're going to do is, in this case, I'm going to select a specific vendor, and this will open up the vendor list from accounts payable inside of ACPAC. And I can go and search for items, which will open up the IC items or the industry control item list inside of ACPAC as well. I can change the stock location, which will obviously look at the location details inside of ACPAC. Right. If I had, if this transaction was a specific expense transaction instead of stock, I could have changed the GL account as well. And I can also obviously change the tax details, whether it's a compatible transaction or not. Now, with regards to all these buttons over here, all of these buttons are security controlled within the CRM. So for instance, if I'm only allowed to buy from certain vendors, then I'll only see those vendors in the list. If I'm only allowed to buy specific items, I'll only see those items in the list. If I'm only allowed to buy against a specific stock location, then once again, the finder will only show me those locations. And the same counts for the GL account, for instance, and also the tax details as well. So I can really lock down a user in order to obviously minimize mistakes. I'm going to add quantity over there, and you can see also I can add some pricing details in there, and I can put in some line comments. I click on add to put it into my little shopping basket. What's quite nice here is I can create a transaction here for multiple vendors, and it will go and create a purchase order per vendor inside of Backpack. We can also have a central buying department and actually channel the transactions through to multiple Backpack companies as well. I'm going to choose a different vendor over here, and I'm going to choose a different item, change the stock location again, and the quantity and the price. And add it to the detail. I can continue adding items here to the detail line, to the detail lines in my shopping basket. If I want to edit a specific line, I can just select the line and then change my details over there and commit it again by just saying add line. I can also delete lines from my shopping basket over there as well. You'll also notice that we have a PO number field to the right of the screen. So as soon as we are integrating it through to ACPAC and we receive the purchase order number back from ACPAC, it will be populated in these fields over here. So I'm just going to save this document. And at that stage, you'll see that the workflow steps come into play over here. Now remember, I'm at the requisition stage, so I'm going to take this information that I've added now and I'm going to send it through to the buyer. Now, I'm logged in as the administrator, but just keep in mind that in a normal situation, you'll have your different people in the workflow process dealing with a specific transaction. So I'll have a different buyer, I'll have different approvers, I'll have different requesters, etc., etc. Now, what happens is, as soon as I actually progress this transaction in the workflow by doing the following, I can add a tracking note, and then at that stage, as soon as I click save, it will actually create an email notification through to the next person in line in the diagram, in this case the buyer. So the buyer will receive an email notification and with a URL that will take him through to his CRM page, and he will be able to then do what I'm going to do now. You can also see in as the buyer, and the buyer will now send it through for a specific approver for approval. But what we can do here is I can use my normal standard CRM functionality of document attachment to, for instance, attach my quotes now, and we'll have a look at that. I'm just going to quickly show you the PO requisition over here. You'll see that the transaction has all the details. So, for instance, if I wanted to go and change the vendor, I might have wanted to do that. So, I can select a different vendor in this case. And I might also change pricing details. And you can see the transaction has not changed over there before we are going to send it on to the approval level. What I also want to do at this stage, I want to use the standard transaction or the CRM functionality so that I can actually do a document drop of my quote. So let's say, for instance, we had a quote over there. I can take that quote and put it into CRM. For the next person in mind to obviously have a look at. Right, so I'm going to send this off to the level 2 approver now. Remember, it goes to the level 2 approver because my document total falls within the limitations of that specific authority. And I can add my tracking note over here. and save the transaction. Once again, at that stage, as soon as I hit the save button, the email notification will fire off to the person that will do the approving. He will receive the email notification, open it up, click on the URL, it'll open up CRM, and he will be able to progress transaction through to actually doing the approval. But what's quite nice is because we are using CRM, if I look at the documents tab now, I can actually see the document that was attached by the buyer. So I'll be able to open that up, look at all the pricing details, confirm that that is correct. And once I'm happy that that is correct, then I can move along and approve the transaction. What is also important is I can have a look at the tracking tab inside of CRM as well, and it will show me the different statuses and all the persons that has actually worked on the specific document and how long the transaction actually remained on that person's desk. Right now, basically what we do is we use these duration times to create escalation rules. So, you know, if I have an internal service level saying that, you know, I need to make sure that a specific procurement happens within a day and the total procurement time is longer than a day, for instance, then I can escalate it through to a manager. More realistically, for instance, if I'm dealing with purchase order receipts, and I know that the estimated arrival time of that specific receipt will be happening within 2 days, and obviously, you know, the goods or the items are not received within the 2 days, then I can escalate through to the supplier and through to my direct manager as well. So let's just go and approve this transaction. Now, at this point in time, we have all the information that is necessary for a purchase order to exist in the ERP system, in this case, ACPAC. So as soon as I hit save here, all this information that I've now gathered through the process is now handed through to the Windows service. And the Windows service is basically sitting over here, and it's basically just collecting all this information now and passing it on to ACPAC via the API and creating the purchase order inside of ACPAC. Now, we can schedule the integration to happen you know, every 5 minutes or whatever the case is. And in this case, I'm just going to stop and start my service just to force the integration so that the transaction happens quicker. So if I have a look at the transaction now, you'll see that, you know, obviously I won't be able to change any line items because it is an approved purchase order. But right at the bottom now, you'll see the different purchase order numbers coming through. And those purchase order numbers are now created inside of ACPAC. So I can actually show you those transactions. And there's my first transaction that came through together with the CRM reference IDs. And I can also do the second transaction there, belonging to the other vendor. Right, so that's the integration of purchase orders. I'm going to step off the purchase orders for a while, and I'm going to show you some service manager integration. Service manager integration, what we've done here is we are basically creating a job via the web. So typically I'll be sitting in a call desk situation, and I might be servicing specific fleet equipment or serviceable items which might be sitting either at my customer or being used by the customer out in the field. Now what will happen is, you know, once again, we see the whole pipeline over here, so I can look at specific transactions that are in a specific state. So in this case, these are all the pending transactions. I can look at transactions where I've ordered parts. I can look at transactions where I've actually received parts. You know, I can look at maybe the transactions that are ready for invoicing, etc., etc. Right, so I can show you the transaction quickly. So what we're going to do is I'm going to basically say right click and use support case over here. And then you can see over here is all customizable CRM screens. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to enter the equipment serial over there. And you'll see that we have done the integration quite tightly. As soon as I enter the serial details over here of the of the specific unit, then I'll see it's a Toyota Bucky. It belongs to a specific model number. It's currently in use by AB contractors. I can see the warranty details of this specific Bucky over there as well. And all I need to do is I need to say that this will be serviced by a specific service center. So let's use Bloomingdale in this case. I can add a quick description over here. And I can save the transaction. At that point in time, we have all the information that is necessary to create a job. Okay, so you can see that the workflow steps are populating over here, and I can click on Create Job and add a tracking note. Now at this point in time, we are passing the information once again through to the Windows service. So let's just stop and start that again. And as soon as the integration happens, we'll be able to see the job number populating over here. Right, so that's our service manager job created. I can quickly show you what that looks like. There's our job, and I can see that it was my blown tire over there. I can see my reference numbers coming through from the case created inside CRM. I can also see the equipment details over there. And my warranty details of this specific unit. So in this case, the warranty agreement applies to this support call. And we've also added travel as a standard line item for callouts into the field. So we can do that type of thing through the CRM front end as well. Right, now what we can also do, I'll go back to my job here in CRM. You'll see that the workflow is now kicking in, and I'll be able to now move the document through my different statuses by using the CRM workflow. Now, as soon as I actually change the details on this side, it will actually do a bidirectional integration and update my status levels inside of CRM, inside of Service Manager rather. So what we'll do is we are going to order some parts for this blown tire. And that will obviously now go into my procurement workflow to obviously create the purchase order through all the authorization levels, through the buying department, etc., and it will create the purchase order as we've seen earlier. Now, what is important here is we've now changed the status of this document through to parts ordered. So if I go back into Service Manager and I refresh this job, you'll see that the status has now changed to parts ordered. Now, the reason for this is, obviously I might be sitting in a workshop or might be out in the field, and I might actually have a mobile device up in the field where I'm actually fixing this tire now. So I'm getting information back from either the workshop or out in the field, and that will then update the status as I'm working on this job. So let's do that. So I'm going to update this the status over here to, let's say, parts received. And as soon as I do that, the transaction will progress in the workflow inside of CRM, and we can have a look at that quickly. As soon as I refresh the transaction on this side, it will show me parts received in a couple of seconds. And you can see the status have now updated over there. Right, so I can continue to complete my job like that. I can then also just quickly show you what we've done for fuel issues out in the field. So this will be the situation where, for instance, we might be sitting at a Bowser in the field, and I'm refueling that Bowser, my equipment from the Bowser, and I want to take a fuel issue and actually put that transaction in from the field. So what we'll do is we'll go into fuel sheets over there, and I can create a new fuel sheet. and I can change the document status here between pending and final. Obviously, it will stay in pending while I'm actually adding transactions in the field at the data capturing point. So I might be capturing 20, 30, 40 transactions during the course of the day, and once I'm finished capturing all the transactions for the day, at that point in time, I'll set the document status through to final, and at that point, I'll send it through for integration into ACPAC. And what we'll do is we'll change the location here to actually find one of the fuel points that I'm going to refuel out of, and I can change the item over there. And you can see the quantity and everything coming through from ACPAC over there. I can add a transaction date. We've added also some reconciliation figures over here. So if I wanted to check the dip readings of all the issues for a specific day, I will be able to do that from the document itself. So let's put in this case, it's 10,000, and let's say closing reading was 9,000 liters in this case. I can add a manual fuel slip number. So this manual fuel slip would have been issued by the person at the browser point. And I can search for a specific equipment item that I'm refueling. You can see over here we have quite a nice finder. The finder tells you a lot of information, including the serial number, the piece of equipment that I'm refueling, the type of meter that's running on that specific piece of equipment, whether it's an hour meter or a odometer meter read. You can also see where that, who is currently using that specific equipment item. I can also look at the previous reading and the date and timestamp of that specific previous reading. In this case, let's refuel our Toyota Bucky. And I'm going to refuel with 70 liters. And I can put in my current odometer meter read. Right, what we can also do here is we can add some bells and whistles with regards to, I'm not allowed to, for instance, add a new reading which might be lower than a previous reading. That type of logic can also be added into the screen. You can add a reading time. Let's say this was 9 o'clock in the morning, and add the detail. Right, and we'll put the transaction into the little shopping basket over there. What we can do is we can add more of these line items. So let's just put in another one in there. Search for the Toyota Bucky again. Let's say we refueled it this time with 45 liters. This might have happened at a different time from a different point, but in this case, let's just say and this happened, let's say, I'm going to make it 11 o'clock at night, maybe. Now we have warnings popping up all over the place like that, which will obviously tell you if there are duplicates in place. So let's just add that again, and we'll put it into our little shopping basket. Right, so in that, let's say for instance we've added all our transactions, and I'm going to save this document now. We can go to my CRM and look at all the final transactions over here. And you can see there's my transaction. Now this is basically ready to be passed on to Service Manager. So let's just go and do the integration quick. Right, and if I go back and look at the transaction now, it should have some job numbers next to the transactions. There's my job numbers coming through. And I can quickly show you what we've done yet. Right, so if we look at the transaction here, you'll see that we have the equipment item that is being refueled, and also the items that are used to refuel it. Now, obviously, the item will be coming from that specific location which I've entered in CRM. You can see I've issued 70 liters. And what's quite nice is on the equipment item itself, when I look at the meter read, then I can see all the readings that's been added right through, well, since the beginning of time. Right, we also use the transactions here to calculate consumption and running costs of the vehicles. And obviously the readings are also used for Service Manager's advanced maintenance module, which will obviously be used for predicting when the next service will occur for the specific um, equipment items. If I have a quick look here, you can see there's my Toyota Hilux over there. And what we'll do is we'll quickly do a recalc of the service schedules based on the new readings that took place. And this will then tell me exactly when these equipment items that are linked to this AB contract will need to be serviced. Right, that's basically it. Thank you very much.